This video is to show how to identify a hybrid employee and what things you may need to look for when you are posting time for these types of employees. So I'm going to go ahead and select my hybrid employee and show you their timesheet profile. So for most of your hybrids, the premium pay indicator is going to be blank unless they are also happen to be entitled to on-call, in which case it will show an X. Your user type is going to show as Title V. Your US code indicator is going to show as hybrid. And your type of appointment is going to show as either a 5 or a 6. The night differential flag is going to show as true for these employees. They are entitled to night differential between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. for any scheduled tours or any pre-scheduled overtime. Your Saturday premium flag is going to show as true, as well as your Sunday flag. For your hybrids, they are entitled to weekend premiums for all paid hours worked in a continuous period of service, any part of which is on a Saturday or Sunday. And I'm going to show that when I actually get to the timesheet itself. So let's go ahead and actually look at the timesheet for this employee. I'm going to actually show the timesheet summary so we can see the entire timesheet all at once, along with the errors that are on there and warnings. Now this first one is talking about the night differential hours on the 25th. And there are actually two errors for this one. There's that one, and then there's the other one saying that that overtime unscheduled is not valid type of overtime for night differential hours. So what this is telling us is that on the 25th, this employee worked from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. and the timekeeper did enter 4 hours of night differential. However, in order to be entitled to night differential, the overtime has to have been scheduled in advance of the administrative work week, which starts on Sunday. So if this employee was not already told that they needed to work this overtime and it was not already pre-scheduled, they are not entitled to night differential. And that's what this error in VATAS is telling us. So the timekeeper will need to go in and remove this night differential. Now, on the other hand, though, we are getting this warning for this time that is worked on January 22nd. So in this case, this overtime was scheduled in advance of the administrative work week. The employee worked from 4:30 to 10. So this employee should be getting 4 hours of night differential for the time worked between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. because this was scheduled in advance of the administrative work week. So the timekeeper selected the overtime scheduled, and so they do need to be adding the night differential in that case. Now this particular employee was called into work on this Tuesday from 8 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Because this is callback overtime and it was not scheduled in advance of the administrative work week, this employee does not get night differential for these hours. Now the next thing I want to talk about on this timesheet is the weekend premiums. So you notice that VATAS is giving an error up here, talking about the overtime on February the 3rd, saying the weekend premium code is required and the employee is entitled to weekend premiums under Public Law 111-163. So in this case, the employee had a tour on Saturday from 7:30 to 4, and then they worked overtime from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. And when the timekeeper entered this overtime request, they entered it as unscheduled overtime. But what it needs to be is actually OW for the weekend premiums for this employee. So the timekeeper is going to have to get this overtime reverted back to pending so that they can re-enter the premium pay request with the proper code of overtime Saturday. Now in this particular case, this employee was called back in to work on a Sunday, and the timekeeper did select the proper overtime code that included the Sunday premiums on there. So you definitely want to make sure that when you are selecting the overtime codes for your hybrid employees that you are including the ones that are for the weekend if these employees are working anytime on a Saturday or a Sunday. Now there's one other thing that comes into play with the continuous period of service for the weekend premiums. So this particular employee started work at 7:30 on Friday and worked continuously until 12:30 a.m. on Saturday. That means that this employee worked continuously from Friday into Saturday morning. So this whole entire time is actually payable as Saturday premium. So the timekeeper did select the correct overtime code. They did select OW for the Saturday overtime, which is correct. But what the timekeeper now also needs to do is go in and change this Friday to Saturday worked, because now this is a whole continuous period of service that falls into Saturday. So the whole entire time is now payable as Saturday premium. So I'm just going to show you just how to fix a few of those errors. We can fix some of the night differential ones, and we can fix the one for the continuous period of service. So this day was the one where they had the scheduled overtime. So again, this person would be entitled to 4 hours of night differential from the 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. So I'm going to go ahead and select that one and validate. Then on this day, this employee had the unscheduled overtime. So again, it was unscheduled, so they are not entitled. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that and validate, and that is going to get rid of that error. Then remember, on Friday, because this was continuous, I have to change this to Saturday worked in order to actually have the employee paid correctly. And I'm going to go ahead and validate. Now, again, I can't fix this error on February 3rd for the employee being entitled to weekend premiums, because in that case, the overtime actually has to be reverted back to pending by the supervisor and a brand new request entered to also include the Saturday premium on that request. So now I'm just going to show you a couple other little things for your part-time and your intermittent employee. So I'm going to go ahead and show the part-time first. And again, I'm just going to show the timesheet summary on here. So for your part-time and your intermittent employees, the regulation for overtime is it has to be over 8 hours in a day, over 40 hours in a week if they are not on a compressed tour, or over 80 hours in a pay period. So you may see, if you're posting for your part-time employees, you may be getting this error saying daily overtime, part-time compressed, daily hours must be met and must be greater than 8 before an overtime entitlement exists. So in this particular case, this employee has Friday off. They came in and worked for 2 hours, but this is not overtime because it's not meeting any of those overtime requirements. So in that case, the time just needs to be posted as RG on the time card. Now, another error that this employee is also getting is, again, for the weekend premium code. So in this case, this employee is off on Saturday. They came in and worked 8 to 4:30, and the timekeeper just posted RG. Because this is a Saturday, this actually needs to be posted as SW for Saturday worked. So we'd be able to go in as the timekeeper and correct that one on the 27th, but we will not be able to fix the overtime. Again, that is going to need to be actually canceled and posted as RG instead. So I'm going to go ahead and just change the Saturday, though, just so you can see. We're going to go ahead and validate that, and that's going to get rid of the weekend premium error. But again, for the overtime, if it's not meeting the overtime requirement, you'll need to have that canceled or reverted back to pending, I should say, by the supervisor, and then you can cancel it, and then you would actually just post the time on the timesheet as RG. So now I'm just going to show you an intermittent hybrid employee. So we're going to select this employee. I'm going to go to the timesheet summary. And again, this is similar to your part-time employee. It's going to give you errors if you did not use the proper codes when you're doing your add work time. So this employee worked on Sunday, so it's giving an error saying that this was posted as RG, and it needs to be Sunday. You also notice, though, too, it's giving you a warning here saying overtime entitlement exists on January 21st. So in this case, this employee worked over 8 hours in a day. So this actually needs to be removed from the timesheet and a premium pay request entered for those 6.5 hours, because this employee did work over 8 hours in a day, so they are entitled to overtime. And the timekeeper did post Saturday completely correctly. They posted the time, the 8 hours as Saturday pay, and then the overtime as OW. One last thing I did want to point out is that overtime is over 8 hours in a day. So this particular employee worked 8 hours on Tuesday, and then they worked 6 hours on Wednesday. So this is not overtime because these are 2 separate days. So this is actually correctly posted as RG. So the only thing that the timekeeper would need to do to fix this timesheet is they need to change this first day to SG, and then they need to remove this RG and actually have it posted as overtime. Now, for your intermittent employees, they are not entitled to night differential for any time worked, and I'm just going to show you that just really quickly on here. And even if you tried to put night differential in here, so if I tried to put 4 hours of night differential and I tried to validate it, it's going to just let me know that the employee is not entitled to night differential, and it is automatically removed by the system. Now, one last thing about your hybrid employees. If you have any of them that work crossover tours, I really recommend that you watch the video for your Title V employees to learn how to set up the tours for your employees with crossover tours. That is how you would identify a hybrid employee and some things you need to know about posting on their timesheets. And I thank you for joining me in this video.